And okay, it is 4 o'clock. Do you have 4 o'clock?
I have 4 o'clock.
Okay, we're going to get started. Today is the How to Plan workshop, and this is how to create a plan that you'll actually do. Just a brief rundown of a couple of the features for you all. We have the chat box and the Q&A box, and just so you know, we're going to cover all of the material, but hopefully we'll have time at the end for a little live Q&A where you'll use the Q&A box to type in questions. The chat box we'll just leave for any technical issues. So if you want to just, let us know that you're here and that you can hear us and see us, that would be great. Beth can be our eyes and ears for that. So let's make the most of our time together. Really want to ask you to kind of create and honor this space to learn. I know it's really easy, especially we've been Zooming a lot more in the times of COVID, but just give yourself this time to sit and observe this information because we are going to go pretty quickly and this is pretty information dense, but I want to make sure that we have time at the end to chat with you guys. So if you are here live, if you would like, tell us why you're here today. And I think, Beth, you can see those. So let me know if you see any chat box of why you decided to show up today and learn how to plan. That'll be helpful for us. And we can also maybe try to add in some more information that might be helpful for you. So I know that a lot of people are looking to, when clients talk to us, they say, I want a meal plan, I want to learn how to meal prep, and I want to know how to make a better plan. And honestly, we are going to not do that today. Yeah. We're going to help you figure out how to make a plan that you actually do. So I know somebody did type in and said, I'm looking at any advice to get started with better food. Can y'all hear me? No, we can't hear you. So
you're turn off.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't hear you, but at the end, we can bring you on and talk to you live if we need to. But definitely just getting started with better food choices. We will talk about that, but we're not going to do meal prep. So we're going to talk about different kinds of planning and how we can actually make it effective for you. Let's see, I'm going to close that. And I just want to let you know that you're in the right place today. If you're trying to figure out what works, or you kind of just wish we'll tell you what to do, which is what most people are at. Just give me the plan, tell me what to do, right?
Yep.
Or there has to be an easier way. It's like you're struggling and it's not working for you. So there has to be an answer to all of your struggles. And you're also ready to learn and try something new. So we're definitely going to give you some new information today.
So today what you're going to learn is how to make a useful plan that you'll actually do because you're going to be the one that's making it. If we just give it to you, it might sound all nice and good to begin with, but then, it'll go by the wayside. So we're going to teach you how to create your own plan so that you will actually do it. And then how to avoid pitfalls of diet culture and over planning. And so we mentioned diet culture because when you're on a diet, you're usually on something and then off something. And so we're usually listening to these voices that are, I'm being good or I'm being bad. And then we try to do everything just right and we over plan and it feels like too much. And so we're going to scrap all that and just get to the basics, but still create a healthful plan for you. So I'm Beth.
And I'm Jessica.
Yeah, so I am a registered dietitian and Jessica is a certified life coach. This is actually where we met, was here in culinary school. That's the back of my head and Jessica is there on the other side in the middle. I do believe this was our big hoorah event, but we met in culinary school and we decided to keep working together. And throughout the years since then, we have I've studied in depth on functional nutrition and now internal family systems, and Jessica and I both did eating psychology, and she has gone on to get certified in as a life and weight coach. So we have done a lot of learning together. We are also normal people with similar challenges and urges and the desire to, just to have fun and be free. This is, way back when life was normal and just kind of going out into the world. So we are normal people. We are not robots.
Yeah, it's like even though we've studied food and nutrition and psychology throughout all of these years, we still have a lot of the circumstances and problems. We just know how to deal with them a little bit better.
Yes.
We're going to help you figure that out today.
Yes. And we also used to travel and create trips and retreats and things for individuals, and we deeply miss doing that. So we needed to kind of throw this picture in to just, let you know that we miss the real world as well too, and all the things that we used to do. So we're hoping that once we get back to somewhat of a normal thing, that we can start hosting retreats again.
Yeah, so we've totally been in your shoes. And like I said, we have similar problems and circumstances just like normal people. But the difference is we're spending less time indulging in our confusion about them. We actually know how to make decisions, and we're definitely not spending time beating ourselves up. Right, Beth?
Yeah, no more beating yourself up. Yeah.
So what I want to offer is how you think about your planning process is exactly how you experience it. So if you're dreading it or thinking it's going to take too much time or it's too hard or you hate it, you're probably not going to enjoy it. So what if we could find a way to have you show up differently so it feels easy and more effortless?
And you don't have to love it either.
Yeah, we're not turning you guys into cheerleaders. We do want to try to at least get to a neutral place when it comes to, taking care of yourself. So this comes to this part, which is did you know that your brain is designed to dislike new things? We're going to teach you a lot of new stuff today, and there might be some feelings of resistance or confusion, and that's just your brain doing its job. So just take notes of what comes up for you, and then we can talk about it at the end. So we're going to get started with how to plan. And I guess the first question is, are you wishful planning? And how do you know if you're wishful planning? Because wishful planning is not useful. And to be honest, most of us, we've been taught wishful planning is the way to go. So odds are, yes, you're probably wishful planning, but we're going to change that today. Okay, so what does wishful planning even look like? It's planning what you think you should be doing. So Beth, can you elaborate on
Yeah,
what they think they should be doing?
Yeah, so it's oh, well, I have started this new diet, so I should plan from that. And so it's not what your natural instincts would be, or from something that you've created yourself. You're just planning based on an arbitrary set of guidelines.
Yeah, so people are oh, I know, I'm going to have a smoothie for breakfast, kale salad for lunch, and chicken and broccoli for dinner because that's what I should be doing, right? And
yeah.
And the reason why we do that is because we're doing it from a place of scarcity or fear or guilt or hurry. There's so much rush to lose the weight or to get healthy that we think we have to kind of go all in, right? This includes those big gestures or total 180s. It's you were eating kind of standard American diet one day, and then you're tomorrow I'm vegan, right? And it's there's no room for mistakes or changes. And that comes from kind of that diet culture, that all or nothing thinking. And when we get that wave of motivation of okay, I'm ready to get back on my health, I'm going to make this happen, we feel super motivated, but we're also in a hurry, maybe feeling a little scared that, we don't like what we saw on the scale or whatever. And I don't know, Beth, how many clients do you think have told us that they are all or nothing thinkers?
It's more than 50%. So it's definitely, I'd say probably about 70% of our clients are all or nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's normal. Like people are really afraid of the gray area, but what I want to offer is when you say you're all or nothing, people think they're the all, but really they're the nothing. So like you might be all for 3 days, maybe a month, maybe 3 months if you can really hang on to your willpower. But eventually then the nothing comes in. So it shouldn't be all or nothing, it's all and nothing.
Mhm.
And we have to kind of change that because it's really not sustainable or helpful long term. We want you to create results that you get to keep forever, not have to yo-yo through it.
Mhm.
Wishful planning does not require watching your thoughts or feelings. So it's really actions focused. That's why we were like, just, people want us to give them a plan, tell me what to do, what actions do I need to take, and I'll just go do them. And that's what diets are, right? We're like, just give me the set of actions, we go do them, but we're not addressing like how we're thinking about things or how we're feeling about things. And the reason why that's important is because once you get to where you're going, we want you to actually enjoy it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So if we're not changing the mental mindset of, your relationship with food and body, then the action part of it is not going to last forever. So the wishful planning also drives what we call half-ass action, and we'll talk more about that. But really, half-ass action either doesn't create results at all, or it's only creating those limited results. So what we want to do is useful planning. So useful planning is planning what you actually will do. Imagine that. And it comes from a neutral or positive emotion. So like Beth said, you don't have to like it, but we want to be in a neutral place where we're planning from. And this also means that we're going to be taking realistic small changes over time, which is what your brain hates. And
Yeah.
I don't know, Beth, if you.
Yeah, it feels like yeah, we really feel like motivation usually comes with a big grand gesture of wanting to, knock through and do it. But that is actually such a small period of time. And so what actually is where change really comes from is a lot of small steps consistently over time. But in our culture, to have it now, or as a human in general, those things don't really mesh up until you finally, give into it and realize that that really, really is the way.
Yeah, and that's why diet culture is so challenging, is because we're taught like, oh, you can lose 20 pounds in 10 days, just take this pill, it's all going to be all right. So it's really that diet culture promotes that quick change, but that's not how it works. If it worked, we would all just take the diet pill and we would be here, right?
Right. Yep.
Things don't work. So um, useful planning is sustainable and it creates self-confidence and self-trust. And I just want to note kind of like what self-confidence actually is, because I think even I, like a few months ago, thought, oh, self-confidence means feeling confident all the time, feeling good all the time. And that's not really what self-confidence is. Self-confidence is knowing, hey, I can mess up, but I have my own back and I'm going to keep going. So if you think about a baby who's learning how to walk, they don't have any evidence from the past that they know how to walk in the future, but they still figure it out. They get up, they fall down 100 times, they keep getting up. And not once are they sitting there thinking, oh, I'm a failure, I'll never walk, I'm a bad baby, right? Nobody would ever say that to them, and they never think it. So these sustainable, slow, small shifts help us rebuild that self-confidence and that self-trust, and knowing that we can still do things even though we don't have past evidence of doing them. Which is why useful planning does require managing your thoughts and processing feelings, because we're not using willpower. So willpower is kind of like, if you think about a beach ball and you're shoving the ball underwater, the ball automatically comes up, within a certain amount of time. We can't hold the ball underwater forever. And that's what willpower is. So instead of shoving your feelings and emotions down and waiting, to white knuckle it through a diet, we kind of have to address what is left over. And I don't know, Beth, if you have anything to add about willpower.
Yeah, it's again, like I mentioned before, it's a short-lived, it's not creating change because you're really just trying to do whatever you can to avoid something. And ultimately you can't avoid all things all the time. And so just coming at things from a different place, other than what I like to call it white knuckling things. Like, I mean, like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. We're never going to really have sustainable change that way.
Yeah. So useful planning is going to be super helpful, and it just promotes you actually taking action and getting the results that you want. So this all sounds really good, but how do I really do this? And I promise that we're going to tell you how, but first we're going to talk about the different kinds of action, right? So when we mentioned half-ass action before, that's like, this is my favorite. It's like dreaming of perfection or living in fantasy land. Like you're spending more time imagining yourself as Khloe Kardashian than like what you actually will be a year from now, right? So there's a lot of time spent just dreaming and not doing. Does that sound familiar? And then like just like beating yourself up for imperfection. So I don't know, a lot of people will, when we're wishful planning and we plan smoothie, kale salad, chicken and broccoli, but that only lasts a day and we end up eating a cheeseburger the next day, you end up beating yourself up for it because you're like, oh, it's supposed to be perfect. And it's just like not really helping or serving you long term. And half-ass action is like talking about your goals a lot. It's like always the people that are like talking about being on a diet as they're eating something that's not on their diet, and they're beating themselves up while they're telling you about it. That's super common. And, it's great to talk about your goals, but, it has to come with action, which is why it's half-ass. And then just like making excuses, I think we all, like, again, our brain is really good at coming up for reasons why we shouldn't do things. But making excuses doesn't help us get results, and making a few mistakes. So when you're not taking a lot of action, you're not going to make a lot of mistakes. And this is really common kind of in that perfectionism cycle, because you want to be perfect. So you fear making mistakes, so you just don't do anything. So we see that quite a bit, and that comes into like learning how to fail and being okay with it, and then not making that mean that you're a terrible person or that you're failing at the whole process. It just means like, oh, what can I learn from this mistake and move on?
Yeah, a lot of people are stuck in this, where they are like, man, I didn't, I even heard this week, I don't think I'm going to continue after this appointment because I couldn't even do what you asked me to do. But she really did. It just, in her mind, she thought she had to do it every single day. And I was like, no, like, look at the evidence for the times that you did do it. And that's what we're looking for. So this is like a place where we all get stuck, and then we often it's like we can't do it perfect. Like the keto diet and paleo and all of those things are excellent examples of people that are like, well, I can't do it perfect, that's it, and then this whole thing just kind of blows up. So
yeah, which is that all or nothing thing again. So yes, wishful planning and half-ass action, no more. We want useful planning and massive action. So massive action people, they learn how to decide ahead of time. And the first thing you have to decide is that you're going to reach your goal. So I did have someone where I was like, have you decided that you will lose 20 pounds? And that question totally stumped them, because they were like, have I decided that I will lose weight? I don't know. And I thought, yeah, just like it really is a matter of, I'm going to decide to do something, and then that way I will take as much action as it takes to get to where I'm going. But there's also those little mini decisions, like those micro decisions along the way, that will teach you how to do in a second. Which means you're also, if you're taking a lot of action, there's going to be a lot of room for mistakes, right? So you're going to aim for the stars, and there's going to be some failure along the way, but that's totally okay, because I'd rather you try 1,000 things and hit 800 of them and have 200 fails than try 3 things and have 1 fail, quit because you feel like a failure, right? That's not what we're here to do. People who are taking massive action learn the skill of kind of anticipating obstacles ahead of time and thinking of strategies ahead of time. So instead of constantly being shocked or surprised that you're going to a wedding in 2 weeks, and it's like we're making excuses like everything's out the window, we start thinking in advance, like, how can I get out of this situation when I want to get out of it, and serve the highest good.
Yeah, a common one is like, well, Again, this is like depends on, what your current times and what your work schedule is, but always like, well, I never know when I get to have lunch or where I'm going to end up with for lunch, or those types of things. It's like, well, we do have some control, but since we may not always know exactly, we can have some other strategies that we can keep up with, instead of being like, oh, I can't bring my lunch again today. That's it. This is not going to work. So that's like a common thing that we hear a lot about.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like, what's for dinner?
Yeah.
Often an obstacle, right?
Yeah.
So what are some good strategies? And so people who are taking massive action are also tracking and assessing data. And that does not mean you have to count calories or macros or weigh yourself every day. Usually together we decide like, what's a good data point? Maybe it is weighing yourself once a week or how your clothes fit, but it can also be like, how many mistakes am I making today? Like, how many plans have I made this month? You know, how many urges did I feel? So there's a lot of things that we can track that aren't necessarily traditional data, but also like, yeah, what is my blood sugar? What is my cholesterol? What can we look at that is going to be something that's trackable and something that we can assess over time? And part of that is knowing how to separate your facts from your drama. So for example, with the scale, a lot of us have an unhealthy relationship with it where we make a number we dislike mean terrible things about us in the world, right? Or when it says something positive, we're like, woohoo, let's go celebrate with food. And then it becomes self-destructive either way. So we want to be able to separate the drama from the data so that we can, be in a healthy mindset the whole time. Okay, so now is the chance to kind of take out your pen. If you printed out the workbook beforehand, you can add your notes there. But otherwise, we're just going to give you this process and then we'll give you some tips to go along with it. So this is like the useful planning process. And the first thing that you're going to want to do is kind of create a goal and decide now that you're going to get there. And then
I'll give an example. So I've gotten off the lunch train. I just have been going in at 12:30 and, being like, oh, what's in here? And then I end up eating really random things. And it's not really a full meal oftentimes. Like today was really exciting because I had leftovers. So I'm creating a goal that I'm going to start planning my lunches again.
that's an awesome goal. Perfect.
Right. So I'm just like helping, like this may not be helpful to the people that are listening. You may have a much bigger goal, but a goal doesn't have to be huge. Like it can be something really simple.
Yeah. And even what the person typed in earlier, which was like, I just want to be able to create a plan, right? So your goal can simply be to create a plan for myself, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be those big overarching goals. It's just like, what is a good goal for you to try for this week? We like to start by just looking 24 hours ahead. So a lot of people are like, I need the full week's meal plan and all of this. And that's great if you can figure that out. Obviously we know you have to grocery shop, factor in your life and your family. But the most important window is that 24-hour window. So deciding what you will do tomorrow, today, is the best practice that you can get in. Like every day I'm going to decide today what's going on tomorrow. And the more specific, the better. But I don't think I'm super specific. I just know like, okay, I'm definitely doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I know I have this, this, and this. And I kind of work it out in my mind of, here's kind of the rough sketch. But the reason why we do that is to like start strengthening your prefrontal cortex, because when we decide a day in advance, then we're following a plan versus living from a place of our urge or kind of like our whims of, well, whatever's happening is happening, because that's when we can slip into a lot of excuses pretty easily.
Yeah, and the other reason why we also like to include the 24 hours is that even though we might have a plan for the whole week, sometimes we create that on Saturday or Sunday when we're feeling a little bit more, centered with ourselves, and come, Wednesday or Thursday, we're like, oh, you're not feeling it. So if we could, think about just 24 hours ahead of time, we're still not allowing that to come, our choices from emotion, but we can still be like, okay, I can think about tomorrow like that feels okay. So it's sometimes that whole week or even 5 days just feels like too much. And then even when we do plan it, so oftentimes we've decided we don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So really part of this too is just starting with where you are. So when you're thinking about your 24-hour window tomorrow, we're not planning smoothies and kale salads all day. I want you to look at exactly what you ate yesterday. And if that means you had a cookie at 10 p.m., I want you to plan. And if that means like that's a habit for you, I want you to plan that for tomorrow. And that's going to feel super counterintuitive. You're like, why is our nutritionist telling us to plan a cookie in the evening? That doesn't sound healthy. Do you want to explain why we do that, Beth?
Right. So if that's where you are, and you're just trying to make changes, if you make too many changes, then you're totally going to revolt against it. Like your brain is going to rebel. And so we will eventually, down the line, work to, if that cookie no longer serves you, you're planning for it. That cookie's not coming from a place of urge and excitement,
Yeah.
and like, ooh, I gotta have it.
Yeah.
So if it's
It
a
takes
habit,
the excitement away.
yeah. So that's kind of like why we want to plan for it. It's not like I'm gonna be like, oh, am I gonna get in the cabinet tonight? Like, what am I gonna
Right.
bunker into?
Especially if it's like a cookie that you're sneaking, right? So it's like we're taking out the hiding behavior and the sneaking behavior. And when you decide today that you're going to have a cookie tomorrow at 10 p.m., your brain is going to be like, we don't need a cookie tomorrow at 10 p.m. But if it's what you've been doing every day for the last however long, you're going to want that. So the whole point of that is, again, to train your prefrontal cortex to decide ahead of time. And then what happens is once it's time for that cookie, it's not going to be as exciting. Unfortunately, it's not the same as like, ooh, it's time for my cookie. And so what that does is it actually gets you to decide, is this cookie really what I want? So we start with where you are, decide to do tomorrow pretty much exactly what you did today, but I want you to decide it today and write it down. And then once you realize that you can do what you say you're going to do, then we start doing that 1% change. So what does a 1% change look like, Beth?
Well, so depending on where you are, like if someone were to be eating out a lot, say you got like you get the pasta with the breadsticks and some other thing, like you just get you get the pasta but not the breadsticks and then the other thing. So we're gonna just make one change. Or if you get a large Coke, get a medium. So we're gonna make these smaller changes. A lot of us are home more, and so maybe it's that we don't get up for seconds.
Yeah, or maybe it's just eliminating one of your snacks, or changing the snack from a processed snack to a whole food snack. So it's just one small change. And once you can kind of nail that change, then you add another 1%. And so we're going very slowly. And the process is, again, write down your 24-hour plan today for tomorrow. That also triggers a lot of people because they're like, this is going to take me forever, but it really only takes a few minutes. And it honestly sets you up for tomorrow. It takes away some of that decision fatigue because you're not going into the next day like wondering, oh crap, what am I going to make for dinner? You already decided that and figured it out. So it's actually saving you time.
And some other things that some people do is, their 1% change might really be like 5%. So that I'm like, well, can we just focus on just breakfast? So if you're used to eating oatmeal, it's kind of plain. There's not much to it. You eat that about 7:00. You're really hungry by like 9 or 10. Well, what if we added some protein to it, like either an egg or peanut butter or something? Like, how can we just focus on this one meal so we can do it that way? So that's one of the ways I also like to think about it, is like, what's the meal I want to get consistently down the way that I want to feel?
Awesome. And so in this process, I think it's important to kind of notice what's coming up for you as far as thoughts and feelings. Notice what you're resisting, what is hard for you, that kind of thing. That will be super helpful later on. And we're also just going to follow through, right? So you'll make a plan, you'll do it, and then we keep doing it. Of course, there's going to be days where you're like, well, I made a plan that I absolutely did not follow, and that's okay. We just keep going. Don't make it mean that I've failed or I'm quitting. We're like, well, that day just didn't work out, or this one thing didn't work out. It's very rare that like someone's entire day is just totally shot. That's like a mindset, not a fact, right? So we definitely, it's meal to meal, moment to moment. It's not one fail equals total failure. And so that's just that repetitiveness of showing up for yourself, deciding I'm going to do this every day. This is my new practice, and let's just see what I learn along the way.
Yeah, every meal stands alone.
Yeah.
They don't have to be just because there was something happened at this meal or didn't happen at that meal doesn't mean that the next and whole day or week or whatever is sabotage. You haven't done any of that. You just made one decision and now you just make another one, and they get to be independent of each other. That's the greatest thing. But we often commingle them together for some reason.
Which is why this thought, is it enough? Right? It's like, but is this enough? Is a 1% change enough? Is 5% even enough? Like when I feel this urge to overhaul my whole health immediately. And the answer is yes, because if you can do the 1%, if you can do the 5%, those are things you're going to do forever. And those are going to make such a bigger impact. Like if you think about going to Pilates, right? It's like, what is more impactful? Just showing up like twice a month randomly or going consistently. So we want to make sure that you're building consistency. And I know you're like, but what am I supposed to be eating? So we will give you some tips because I don't want to leave you guys hanging. But just let's pause and notice that your brain really wants to be told what to do. And I don't know, ask yourself, is that really helpful for you to be told what to do? Or do you think it might be more helpful to figure that out on your own? So just something to think about. Okay, but we will give you these helpful tips. So these are the things that we definitely like to work towards in building plans, right? So the first one is eating more veggies. We're going to work our way up to like 6 cups a day. But if you're at a 1 cup a day, we don't jump to 6 cups a day. We start by adding like a half cup to a cup, especially because if you are not eating a lot of vegetables, your guts are not going to thank you if you go straight to 6. Right?
Yeah. And when we say 6, that means raw. And then if you cook it and whatever size it ends up being, then that's it. So it doesn't have to be that, you got to figure out, well, if I cook this broccoli, it does shrink a little bit. So I'm not quite at 6 cups like that. No. Just start with raw. It's roughly about the, a handful. So if you were to stick your hand in, the box of salad greens or, the bowl, like the pile of chopped veggies, like we're going to call that good enough.
Yeah, so like no matter where you are, whether you're someone who's eating like pretty healthy or someone who's maybe not as much, I mean, we can all improve on our vegetable intake probably. So this is something to factor into your 1 to 5% change. We definitely want to focus on balanced meals. So kind of like what Beth was saying about the oatmeal example was, can each of your meals have some protein, some form of fiber, ideally from vegetables, or whole grains and high quality fats with every meal. We don't believe that carbs are the enemy, but we do want to kind of focus more on the whole food options, like have a little bit of fruit, have a little, eat all your veggies, have some starchy vegetables, have whole grains like rice and oats and quinoa, beans, that kind of thing, more often than, bread and pasta and other processed foods. We don't believe that there's like good or bad foods. If food is medicine, then, it's just more like, what is the dose? But the more that we can focus on, our whole foods, you're going to probably be better off.
Yeah. And, notice like how you feel after you eat them. So I may do just fine with sweet potatoes and Jessica feels kind of tired or her stomach feels a little bit weird if she eats sweet potatoes, then those may not be her friends. So what works for me may not work exactly for Jessica or somebody else, and that's okay. So that's where tuning into ourselves and seeing, okay, well, I had this much sweet potato and I felt fine, but then I kind of wanted to eat some more, so then I had some more, but then I felt kind of tired and heavy. Then that usually means that we kind of went overboard on how much carbs our body could handle. So sometimes it's not the actual carbohydrate, it's themselves, it's the either the type or the how much.
Yeah. Which brings us to the type, right? So when we want to learn eventually is how to plan for and really moderate like our flour, sugar, and alcohol. These are like all of the best things, right? But these are definitely the foods that are going to spike insulin. They increase hunger. They change our hunger signals. They change our hormones. So, while there is certainly a time and a place for them, we don't want to be in an unhealthy relationship with them. So that kind of comes down to like that emotional eating and reduced snacking. And usually if you're eating enough like balanced meals, like, I don't know, if you're eating a well-balanced lunch, ideally that would get you through to your next meal. There are definitely people and reasons why we would have physical hunger and need to have a snack in between meals, but I think for a lot of us, we're emotional eating and snacking between meals because we're bored or for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
So
Feels
learning,
like we might need a pick me up at 3
yeah.
o'clock. So it's being able to touch in, am I actually hungry? Or is it that I need to move my body just a little bit and drink some water and then I can do, or like, be like, oh, maybe I didn't eat enough lunch, so just kind of thinking about, really getting to know yourself and like how it responds.
Yeah, so definitely just learning your hunger signals and what is the difference between physical and emotional hunger for me? And then of course, drinking water. You have to drink a lot of water and moving your body, which you guys are doing. And then knowing your inner numbers, I think is a super helpful tip. So like, what is your cholesterol? What is your blood sugar at? Like, there's a lot of numbers that can be telling about your internal health, and those are just as important as eating healthy. So definitely factoring all of these tips into your planning process and thinking, how can I do more of this, would be super helpful.
Yeah, and especially the water right now, it is hot, even though we might be indoors more, we're still, it still is in general hotter. And so we do need to drink more water because we can confuse being dehydrated for feeling that low energy or for feeling hungry or snacky. Just make sure that you are drinking water. And the easiest way to tell if you're well hydrated is that if your urine is just slightly tinted yellow, but if it's dark or anything like that, then you probably need some dehydration, or you probably are somewhat dehydrated. You do not have to have completely clear urine in order to be hydrated. That might actually be overhydration, which kind of can throw off your salt and potassium levels.
So just remember that your brain is designed to make this all so much harder than it is. You can come up with a plan for tomorrow. You can come up for the plan for the week and notice the reasons in your head why you think you can't. Like, it's like, I don't know what to eat, or this is like, I'm very confused. What if you just decided on something and then we played around with it, right? Because how you choose to think about this is how you will experience it. So I want to remind you, you always can adopt the thought that like, I got this. Pretty easy. I can do this. I can figure this out. Because clarity comes from taking action. So, right, if you dive into it, you throw yourself into the fire, you just try something, you're going to get a lot more clear than someone who's waiting to like be clear from information, right? We could spend the rest of our lives on Google trying to find this perfect plan, or we can just try something. So you've totally got